It has to be said, the 2022 Dodgers are the biggest failure in the history of baseball. 111 wins, best run differential since 1939, biggest win differential in playoff matchup since 1906. 1-0 series lead, followed by 3 straight losses, didn't even make it to NLCS. The thought that this is a big failure is the thought that you believe that the playoffs were a good representation of assessing your team's talent. Welcome to my TED Talk. Let me tell you why that is not the case. In general, the idea that the playoffs are a good representation of talent that your team represents is actually not so true in Major League Baseball. It's not so true in almost any sport. With the NBA, with the best of 7 series starting from like the round of 16, and then keeping that format all the way through, and just the smaller rosters and the pace of play, the NBA tends to be closer to a good mix of not necessarily predetermined, but the better quality teams do win out more often than the lower quality teams. So you don't necessarily see too many 8 seed upsets. And when you do, it's a really big deal. Players have a larger impact than they made too. Exactly. Your star players are going to really impact your team. We can all point to very classic examples. LeBron in Miami, Kevin Durant at Golden State. But it is to be said that at the end of the day, good talent, if your team is consisting of good talent, that should win out more often than teams with lesser talent. In baseball, the NFL, and in hockey, this is closer to a coin flip. This is closer to 50-50 odds. Our favorite director of analytics at the NFL level, Stats by Lopez, Mike Lopez, he wrote this many years ago at this point. Where were you in 2018, chat? What were you doing in 2018? In 2018, I was starting my 2nd year as a data scientist for the Cincinnati Reds. And I remember when this came out because it was really important to know about this. Don't forget that the Washington Generals have won multiple games against the Globetrotters in their history. That's true. 2018, I got my first job as data analyst for McKeeson. How long would the postseason series need to be in the NFL, MLB, and NHL to match the NBA's better team advances rate of 80%? In the NFL, a best of 11 series is needed to match the NBA's better team advances rate. So if the NFL is supposed to have a similar postseason win rate to the better, like this better team advances, the 1 seed beats the 8 seed 80% of the time, or really more than that, but better team advances 80% of the time average of the NBA, best of 11. And yes, the NFL has 17 games total in the regular season. The NHL best of 51 series is needed to match the NBA's better team advances rate. Can you imagine? This is quite the amount of games needed to solve whether or not a team is better. And of course, in the MLB, a league in which you have 2 generational players on one team, and they can't even sniff the playoffs, Ohtani and Trout. Best of 75 is needed to really know whether or not a team has advanced. And it wasn't necessarily based off probabilities of luck. We're talking about a team like the Dodgers, especially in 2022. If there was more best team advances probabilities, you would need far more than a 3 or 5 game series to solve this. Again, as the paper suggests, a best of 75 format would be statistically needed if you were to match the same rate as the NBA. That is the amount of impact the amount of games you would need to see your players impact at the rates that they should, which again is not possible. But the suggestions are good. I feel like at the end of the day, there's some good points and suggestions. The first couple things, if you make it into the playoffs, you have a chance. The 2010 Giants, two of those teams were wildcard teams. They made it in, and they were the absolute underdogs in every series. If you win a title, great. But the example here of the 2013 Red Sox bringing back their roster in 2014 and then finishing last in the AL East, that is a tale of being able to just get in, win it all, come back the next year and be out of the playoffs again. The 2010 Giants go out, win it all. The next year, they're a losing team. If you fail to win a title, and this is the important part for someone like Blake Harris, if you're one of the top teams, do your best to keep going. Convince folks internally how talented and skilled your team actually was. Don't be afraid to point out things like randomness and luck, or to show them this article. And don't do things like rethink your whole philosophy. Though in fairness, don't do things like that Mike Milbury says to do shouldn't need so much math. This is really important because, as you can see with a tweet like this, you get responses like this. And it's not that you should be firing people who have led you there. You shouldn't necessarily be completely turning 180 on the people who got you to apparently a historic record. Again, if you are one of the top teams, keep going. And the Dodgers have had the formula of not just being one of the top teams this year, but they have been one of the top teams every year for a strong decade. It is important to know that if you fail to win, but you're a good team, you shouldn't think that the next thing to do is like, let's change potentially people who are leading our philosophy, potentially people who are pushing important parts of our organization in the right ways. It's why when you see fans be critical in overreactionary ways, you can't fault them for being passionate. If people want to win and win now and win in the way that they believe is the way to win, I can't fault someone from thinking like, if I was the GM, you only have to do these things and we win a champ. Like, I get it. Like the being passionate about your team, it's an important part of baseball. It's an important part of sports or any fandom. But being steadfast through that when there are people out there suggesting the same things, understanding that you don't need to rethink the whole philosophy if you are doing something that is good and evident in your process, that's really important. And I would suggest to anyone, keep doing that. Don't just hear it from Mike Lopez, but from me too. As someone who's been on both sides, it's really easy to say how to fix a team when there are no consequences to any of your decisions. That's right. Like if you want to just like fire everyone and bring in your favorite big tech names, you want a front office where Elon Musk is the GM? Sure. In the world of fantasy, you win. And again, just go back to the Dodgers real quick. About here, somewhere here, when they started the path that they're on, that they're currently in, somewhere around like 2007, 2010. I think it was like 2009, 2010. And not only do they like lose a lot of different playoff games, they do win a World Series in 2020. They lose a bunch of playoff games. It's hard to doubt the dominance, especially when we're talking about like 90 plus win seasons and every now and then you win 100. Like this is pretty consistent of a very good baseball club. To be upset that they didn't win in 2017 or 2018, they didn't get past some of these different first round exits. I get it. You could be frustrated, but you're watching potentially one of the greatest rosters ever assembled right now. There's a lot to be said about that, but yeah, at the end of the day, fans want championships. I get that, but to overreact and say, let's fire the guy who has led our team to this, let us not fall into this. So that is what I say to someone like Blake Harris. I don't think it is the biggest failure in the history of baseball. I don't. One of the greatest accomplishments in baseball has been the 2016 to 2022 Dodgers under Dave Roberts. They truly are a machine. From the top down. From the major league team all the way to how they draft. When they write the book on these Dodgers, there's going to be a lot of people with tails between their legs and revisionist histories. A lot of old takes expose moments.